Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Kimberly Cloud Show. I'm your host, Kimberly Cloud. I have a very, very special guest here for the show today. Can you go ahead and announce to the world who you are and where you're calling from?
I can't hear you.
You can't?
No.
Private chat.
I'm gonna try. I'm trying.
Um, Hold on, y'all. You're on mute. You're on mute. Unmute, Mike. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Um,
Hmm.
can you hear me?
Nope.
No. Hold on for a second. Let me studio. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, let's start from the top. Thank
Okay.
you, everybody, and welcome to the Kimberly Cloud Show. I'm your host, Kimberly Cloud. I have a very, very special guest here for the show today. Can you go ahead and announce to the world who you are and where you're calling from?
Sure. My name is Sabrina Trobak, and I am in Fort St. John, which is in northern British Columbia, Canada.
Okay, and can you tell me about your past leading up into your present?
Sure. So I was a teacher for about 20 years, mainly working as a learning assistant teacher. So working in small groups with kids who struggled with academics, behavior, whatever it might be. Towards the end of my teaching career, I was a school counselor and learned about a model of therapy where you're looking at a person's core belief. And so I quit teaching and started my own private practice, focusing on helping people better understand their core belief and how influential it is in all of our decisions, behaviors, actions, relationships, and then how to challenge and change that core belief from not good enough, not important, and not valued to being more good enough, important, and valued.
Give me an example of that,
Of,
like in a real life scenario or a example.
of a core belief, not good enough, not important, not valued.
Yes.
So it can be anything, beating yourself up all the time, a lot of negative self talk, seeming like you almost kind of sabotage yourself. Things are going well, things are going good, and then you just find something and you end up kind of sabotaging it. That's often that core belief. This model says that we like for things to be balanced. And so if my core belief is not good enough, not important, not valued, and things are going well for me, I'm feeling happy, content, pride, I'm feeling connected. Now that's out of balance. So unconsciously, I end up sabotaging myself so that I can go back to feeling not good enough, worthless, unheard, not appreciated, not valued, all those kind of things.
So the untying of the threads, is it sort of like a file that you have to like delete or something? Like what I mean by that is like is it a way that you can, because some you can't always just delete something. Like what you're trying to do or what you have been doing for teenagers. You can't delete it out your brain, but you can change the behavior of it, and that will get your mind off of the negative thinking. Is that a true statement?
Yeah, like your brain is kind of like a filing cabinet.
Yes.
So decisions that you make now are based, your brain goes back through the file and finds a similar file from the past, looks at how you handled it, and that's how you end up handling it now. And it happens so quickly, it's an unconscious thought. So, it's not even so much deleting the files, it's just getting better at not using them as much. We're going to create a new file that's got a healthier behavior or a healthier habit. It's reinforcing and supporting that healthier core belief. The more we practice that file, the more now when our brain has a decision of going to the unhealthy file or the healthy file, the healthier file becomes more likely the one that we're going to go on to. The more we practice a behavior, the more unconscious it becomes. So if we have a behavior like lying that I've been doing since I was a little kid, that's a pretty thick file, right? But if I start working on, okay, I'm going to be more honest, I'm going to be more truthful, I slowly have to build that file up. But over time, that file becomes thicker and thicker and thicker. And if I'm now choosing that file rather than the lying file actually starts to shrink and becomes less and less and less. So it becomes more likely that I'm going to be able to go more to that new file, the hopefully more healthier file.
Give me an example where somebody thanked you for this brilliant, thing that you're doing right now for everyone.
This is a long-term model of therapy. So my clients are usually with me a year and a half, 2 years.
Are they teenagers or they're adults or
Yeah,
both?
no, actually, mostly what I work with is adults. Definitely when I started this practice, I thought, well, I'll work with kids and teens. That's what I worked with my whole teaching career. But what I realized is it rolls downhill. So to work with the kids and expect them to pass it up to their parents doesn't work. If I work with the parents, it's much easier for them to hand it down to the children. So I generally work with adults. If I am working with a youth, I usually have the stipulation that I must see at least one parent as well. So we're kind of working together on those kind of things. And what I generally find is throughout the whole process, clients just get more and more light bulb moments where they go, oh, I never thought about it like that before. The more they're aware, the more they can look at it in a bit of a different perspective, the more they can challenge and change and do things a bit differently. So that starts right at the beginning when we talk about anxiety, not really being about the trigger. Anxiety is about confidence, not believing in yourself you can handle the trigger. For a lot of people, that's a light bulb moment where they realize, oh, once I start to believe in myself and I use strategies to help me feel more confident in handling the trigger, my anxiety goes down. All the way up to, towards the end where people just feel a sense of kind of inner peace and contentment.
What kind of therapy is this that you use?
This is a very eclectic approach. So we use a combination of about
Approach.
15 different models of therapy,
Okay.
depending on the stage that the clients are in and individual clients as well. So we use a very eclectic approach.
You use 14 different therapies. You have to remember 14 different
Well, I
therapies.
don't have to remember 100% of 14. I know the pieces that I like to use from the different models. And so those are often the ones that I end up kind of using repetitively, but they're not from one specific. We do a lot of psychoeducational, we do a lot of CBT, and a lot of kind of personalized daily experience kind of reframing thinking and things like that as well.
Did you hear about the device that can go on a adolescent's head that helps with depression and anxiety? That's what they have now. Uh, the cognitive behavior therapy I hear is the gold standard. They usually use that a lot. And um, what I want to know is like, what is the usual therapies like other than cognitive and psychoanalysis that you use and why?
We use bits and pieces of different ones. I think a common one that we hear is client-based therapy. And we do client-based therapy in that each client's telling their individual story. We're helping them figure out and sort through their own things. I'm asking them questions to get them to challenge and think about things in a bit of a different way. But it's not client-based in that the client is leading therapy. I'm the counselor, I'm leading therapy. I'm just trying to kind of help them figure out how to take more of the lead. When we get more towards the end of counseling, where that core belief has really shifted and we're what we're called the maintenance part of the process, then it is more client led, where they really are coming in and trying to sort through and understand. Because while this is a long-term model of therapy, there is an end to it. So I want my clients to be able to figure this stuff out on their own. I don't want them to have to always kind of be relying on or counting on Sabrina to help them figure out how to sort through it. So as we move forward, it becomes more and more center-based, but to start off with, it's not. I always say it's kind of like, me taking my vehicle to the mechanic and telling the mechanic what's wrong with my car. I'm taking them to a specialist because I don't know. Same thing with counseling. People are coming because they're saying, I'm stuck. I'm not doing well. I need help. I need you to kind of help me work through this. It's not my job to solve the problem for my clients, but it's my job to provide insight and opportunities for them to challenge themselves and learn in different ways, so they are taking on their own mental health.
Tell me about, because you've had 20 years of education, a situation where maybe psychoanalysis actually, or client therapy actually, help the client. Like, what is the statistics beyond, like, around this therapy? Because this is basically a verbal type therapy versus medication and the technology that we have today. So what are the statistics that a person will actually, change their behavior because of these different therapies that different people wrote about, and we, or you, decided to go with the 14 different therapies?
Well, this model of therapy was actually created by a man named Tony Martins, who kind of took this eclectic, looked at all the different models of therapy and brought them together. So it is one model that I practice where we're really focusing on that core belief. But within that is definitely around 14 different models of therapy. Tony's program was actually developed for families of sexual abuse in Alberta. And he worked with over 1,500 families of sexual abuse where the father was the sexual offender. They worked with the clients for 2.5 years and then followed them for 3 years after. And in that, one reoffense occurred, and they had less than 10 divorces. So it does have a fairly significant positive outlook in Tony's program. With my clients, most of my clients who go through and get to the end definitely continue to feel more content and more empowered within themselves. They definitely feel that core belief shifting to more good enough, important, and valued. And when they start kind of falling back into their old ways of doing things, they can recognize it, realize what's going on, and use it as a way to challenge themselves to move forward.
Everybody's end is different though, right?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's individuals, right? So what that looks like for everyone specifically looks a bit different. But, bottom line, by the end, my clients are okay to feel their emotions. They don't run away from them. They don't avoid them. They are okay to just acknowledge, ooh, I'm feeling fear and powerless, and they acknowledge and feel those emotions and then move through it. So they've become more confident in their ability to feel their emotions. They're more aware of what's going on, what's happening. They've got a sore stomach. Well, that's weird. I never get a sore stomach. Why do I have that now? Is it the flu? Or is it, I have a big presentation coming up in a week from now, and maybe it's anxiety based. So they have more self-awareness, more of an understanding of what's going on. They're more aware of whether they're using coping strategies in a healthy or an unhealthy way. And if they're using it in an unhealthy way, rather than just trying to stop the coping strategy, they're figuring out, well, why is it there? It's there for a reason. So they're using healthier coping strategies like journaling, going for a walk, to help them sort through and understand more why they're doing what they're doing.
What kind of therapy would you use for somebody with anxiety versus schizophrenia versus depression or postpartum depression or whatever?
Right. So, one of the things we do look at is medication. And so because this is an eclectic approach, one of the pieces is medication going to be of benefit? And so many of my clients are on medication. So, anxiety, depression, schizophrenia is going to have different kinds of medications that are going to be of benefit. It's really kind of depending on how much crisis a person is in as well. When someone's really in crisis, we're really just helping them kind of stabilize and trying to kind of keep things together. Once they're stabilized, then we slowly start digging into things at a bit of a deeper level and gaining a better understanding. We often see that anxiety and depression often fit together in a bit of a cycle. Anxiety is that on guard, that kind of on alert all the time. Well, you can only do that for so long, and it just becomes too much. We end up kind of going into a bit of a depression where we don't care anymore. I'm just going to go through the motion. We do that for a bit, kind of start to feel a bit better. Then we go back into the anxiety again. So we often look and see if we can see a bit of a pattern of that kind of happening. We're gaining a better understanding of anxiety, how it is connected to that core belief, not good enough, not important, not valued. Same with schizophrenia, bipolar, all those different kinds of things. We want to gain more of an understanding of why they're there and then the impact of it. If you're struggling and you've struggled with mental illness since you were a small child, it is going to play a major impact on your confidence level, which again then reinforces and supports not good enough, not important, not valued. It creates more anxiety. If you're always overthinking, if you're not sure, if you're having paranoid thoughts, that all creates more anxiety. So they all can feed over each other. So it is very individual of where each person is at and challenging them at that level. Once we challenge there for a while and they practice at that level, then we increase and go a little bit further. And then we practice that for a while and then we increase again. So it's a very slow process where we're building confidence before we take that next step.
I read somewhere where anxiety could be connected to the gut too, as well as the brain. Is that true?
We often say that our gut is kind of like our second brain for sure. So, often even things like if we have high anxiety, our brain needs more serotonin. Serotonin's a chemical that makes us feel calm and relaxed. So what do? Our gut starts craving sugars, fats, and starches. Sugars, fats, and starches give us a quick rush of serotonin. Now, our gut has a whole bunch of serotonin, but when it passes up to the brain, it says, okay, we need to, refill our supply. So it ends up craving those sugars, fats, and starches. But the other connection is when we're in high levels of anxiety, what happens is we go into that fight, flight, freeze response. Fight, flight, freeze dumps adrenaline into our body so that we can get ready to fight or to run away from a situation. That takes a lot of energy. Where does that energy come from? It can't just magically appear.
Exactly.
So all of our non-vital organs get zapped of energy to give us that energy for that adrenaline rush. So bladder, bowel, immune system, stomach, pancreas, kidney, liver, intestines, all get zapped of energy so that we can go into that fight, flight, freeze. Now, if I only have anxiety once in a while when I'm really in danger, it's not a big deal. Our body can adjust to it. But if I have really high anxiety and I'm creating my own anxiety through my thoughts hundreds of times a day, that's going to have a massive impact. If my stomach is being zapped 100 times a day, I shouldn't expect it to digest food properly. It's just not going to work. So we need to have that understanding that we are holistic. It's our body as a whole. They're all kind of connected.
Do you think that bullying plays a role in a person's heightened anxiety? Maybe.
Bullying?
Yeah, bullying.
Yeah, yes, for sure. But what we always say is, the events are traumatic. There's no doubt about it. But it's often how it's handled.
Okay.
So a child who is bullied and can go to their teacher, their friend, their coach, their mom, their dad, and say, hey, this is happening, and they get the support and they get the help that they need, bullying's probably not going to be a major issue. But the kid who's bullied and never tells and never says anything, and it happens the next day and the next day and the next day and the next day, and they become more and more quiet, more and more unsure of what to do about it, it's going to have a much more significant impact. So the event is traumatic, but really what causes long-term trauma is the lack of support in dealing with it. Most of us we don't talk about emotions. We don't talk about feelings. So if I'm being bullied, it's, oh, well, don't worry about it. Just ignore him, right? Punch him in the face. It's over with. These kind of events that don't really help. Really, if a child's being bullied, we should say, how are you feeling about that? But as soon as my child tells me that they're being bullied and it's feeling emotion, well, that creates emotion in me. But if as a parent, I don't like to feel my emotion, I got to shut my kid down. So we're not talking about what we're feeling when they're getting bullied. We're just minimizing it, brushing it, pretending it's not that big of a deal, so we don't have to feel emotion. That means all the emotion from that bullying just gets pushed down and we have to carry it with us.
Does it get pushed down in the unconscious, conscious, unconscious, subconscious, or conscious mind?
All three.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think, there's times where we go, oh, like I'm overwhelmed. I got too much going on. And we're kind of aware of it. But the vast majority of it's unconscious. We're not even really aware it's there, right? And if we've been doing it since we were little kids, it's kind of like breathing. We don't think about, oh, take a breath, take a breath, take a breath. We just breathe. Push down that emotion can be that big of a file in our brain that we constantly go through. Just push it down, pretend it's not a big deal.
Do you think that the more we have traumatic events, the more negative thoughts we have in our minds? Because thought patterns, how many thoughts we think a day is a lot. I believe it's like 100,000 thoughts per second or day, 100 thoughts per day or something. Is that true?
I've heard like a minimum of 6,200 up to like 100,000 thoughts a day. So even at the minimum, that's a lot of thoughts to have. So a lot of those things are happening unconscious. We're not even aware that they're really even happening. Again, more trauma not dealt with, the more it kind of creates those thoughts. And that's what creates that anxiety, right? Anxiety is lack of confidence, not believing in yourself you can handle something. And so if you're always thinking, you can't handle this, you're not good enough, you can't trust anyone, you don't know what to do to protect yourself, you don't leave your house because you don't feel safe, all these thoughts over and over and over and over are going to make that anxiety more and more and more significant for sure.
And where do you see yourself going in the future with what you are doing now as a counselor?
So, I started my practice in 2010, and within about 6 months, I had a waiting list, and I hate having to turn people away. So what I did was I wrote a book called Not Good Enough, Understanding Your Core Belief and Anxiety. And it came out just over 2 years ago now. And so I really am focusing on just trying to provide that resource for other people and being able to provide a bit of an insight from this perspective of that core belief to more of the general population. I have my clients that I work with, I have my waiting list, but there's so many more people that are struggling that if I can kind of broaden that and give them a degree of understanding in that to help them manage it a bit more, that's kind of my focus for the next while for sure. Probably 5-10 years, then maybe retirement. We'll see.
Tell me about the book.
Sure. So the book it goes through and gives you a lot more depth and understanding of that core belief. So it is an activity book. So what that means is you're doing a little bit of reading, and then you're applying that information to your own personal experiences in activities throughout the book. So it can help you really gain an understanding of how your core belief has developed. It goes into more detail about anxiety and how anxiety is connected to core belief. It looks at physical symptoms of anxiety, mental symptoms, and behavioral symptoms of anxiety. We often know what our anxiety looks like when it's kind of a 9 or 10 out of 10, but we don't know what it looks like when it's a 3, 4, 5, 6. That means we're not doing anything about our anxiety until it's really, really high. If I can start to become more aware of what it looks like as it's growing, put strategies in place lower, it doesn't have to get to those higher rates. So we're looking at those symptoms of anxiety, how the symptoms change as the anxiety becomes more significant. We look at anger, how anger is a coping strategy we use to suppress and avoid feeling other emotions that we don't like to feel, like fear, vulnerability, rejection, abandonment, lonely, unheard. We don't like to feel those emotions. Switch it to anger. I don't have to feel those other emotions. And then we look at coping strategies. So what do we do to challenge ourselves on those things? And how do we look at more healthy coping strategies that are reinforcing and supporting that core belief, good enough, important, and valued?
And If you had to give a piece of advice to an entrepreneur that want to be a counselor and open up their own practice like you did, what would that be?
Um, Probably similar advice of what I would give to parents who want to do a good job parenting, and that is you got to work on yourself first. If you want to be a good counselor, if you want to be a good therapist, you've got to be healthy. You've got to work through and sort through and figure out where your core belief is. You've got to figure out your insecurities, your fears, how you can manage and challenge those. Because if you don't do that, you're not going to be of benefit to your clients. Your clients are struggling with something similar to you, you're going to distract, you're going to minimize it. So it's really, really important for therapists to do their own work. Also, we know it has a high burnout rate. Part of why it has a high burnout rate is because therapists haven't done the work to work through themselves first. Same advice I give parents. Number one thing you can do as a parent is work on yourself. The healthier you are, the healthier your children are going to be.
I have to ask this question, but do you all still seeing as though it's 2025 practice Sigmund Freud's therapies or theories?
I mean, I'm sure there probably are some. He's not one that's on my list for sure. Yeah, I think he's got some interesting perspectives that, are interesting to take into consideration. But for the most part, he's not one that I usually do a lot of work with for sure.
Can you tell me about another therapy that you use? Like you have psychoanalysis, I believe, and cognitive
Psychoeducational. Yeah.
psychoeducational. Tell
Yeah.
me more in under 2 minutes about that.
Well, psychoeducational is just, um, I guess, bottom line is trying to give you information so you have a better understanding of why you're doing what you're doing at a much deeper level. So, for example, let's say I have a client whose parent was verbally and physically abusive to them over and over and over again, and the child is now an adult, and he or she says, I don't trust anybody. I can't trust anybody. Well, why is that? Right. And so we often say, well, he grew up with a parent who was abusive. He couldn't trust his own parent. So why would he trust anyone else? It makes sense. And I agree with that. But let's even look a little bit deeper. As a child, if I continue to go to my parent and try and let them and trust them again, and they hurt me again, and I try again, and they hurt me again, and I try again, and they hurt me again, which is what kids do because they want to feel loved by their parents unconditionally. Now, as an adult, I don't trust in myself that I know who I can trust and who I can't trust. I struggle with my own decision making because I trusted in someone over and over and over and over again, and they hurt me every single time. So I'm going to struggle with trusting in others because I don't trust in myself why I'm doing what I'm doing. So psychoeducational looks at that. Why are you doing what you are doing? Let's look at a deeper level and try to understand more significantly of what's going on rather than just scratching the surface.
And lastly, I hate to say this, but how can the people reach you?
So I have a website, trobakholistic.org is my website. On there, it's got all my socials connected in my website as well. I do have a waiting list. And with my association, I only work with people in the province of British Columbia. But I do have a blog section there. I have other podcasts there. And then my social media, like I said, does give me a lot of different pieces of information that people can listen to as well. There's also a place on the website that has my book and the different links that you can go through to purchase my book as well. Amazon is the best place to get it for sure.
Thank you so much. Stay on the line for just another second.
Sure.
Thank you, everybody, for joining my show today. And I will see y'all another time. Bye.
Never waste my time. You are I want.